guys, welcome to welcome back to my channel and another episode of Let's Talk About It, episode 3 to be specific. And today's topic is going to be about toxic positivity, the effects of that, especially when it comes to self-love. And here with me, as you are now used to, our co-host, my friend, Momo. Introduce yourself to the people.
Momo here. Let's talk about toxic positivity, which, according to medical news today, is an obsession with positive thinking. So it's the belief that people should put a positive spin on all experiences, even those that are profoundly tragic. Let's get into it.
So where do we start? Like, we know what toxic positivity is, but for example, have you experienced this? Like, what is your take on the whole thing? Do you feel yourself being almost like obliged to feel positive, even when you may be going through negative feelings, just based on where society is today?
I feel like that's a yes and no. I feel like in my personal experience, I am definitely not a toxically positive person. I don't even know if that's how you would say it. I don't practice toxic positivity, but I do try to look on the brighter side or at least toe the middle line. But it is very hard in social media. Being on social media, you see a lot of those like captioned graphics that kind of encourage only this one way of thinking. And it's the same, like, I think we've all been there before where it's, oh, you know, what you're going through is not that bad. People have it worse. So you should be all right. So when I'm happy, people have it better. So I shouldn't be happy too, you know?
Right.
If you apply that thinking to the inverse, it sounds like a load of bull.
For example, what the definition describes is like you're not allowed to speak out. It's not that you're not allowed to feel it, but it's like verbalize out loud that, hey, I'm not okay, or I'm in a negative space, because people also just throw terms around so loosely these days, like with depression and so forth. So I feel like we're now at a point where when you are going through these phases in life, or, you know, maybe you're just, if it isn't as extreme as that, it's not taken seriously. And funny enough, a video that comes to mind from one of my absolute favorite YouTubers, Evelyn from the internets, and my friend, we're homies. I don't care how you feel, we're friends. And this is more than a year ago. She put out a video entitled "Don't Be Afraid to Be Seen Trying." And I identified with this video so much because it encompasses everything about the way I feel about toxic positivity, in terms of she was encouraging her viewers to do the opposite. It's like we're now at a stage in society where it's not okay to not be okay. Like, we only want people to see us when we're at the best stage in life, which is normal, that's humane, but also just to kind of take down the facade and just realize that everyone goes through these different phases. There are going to be phases where you're feeling really good about yourself, whether it be body positivity, however you feel about your hair, especially as us as Black women, as how you feel about where you are in life in terms of career, maybe how you feel about your personal life in terms of finding a match, like a person that you want to be with. Like, there's so many different aspects of life that we're so afraid to be open and honest about, because there has been this, I want to say, this forced culture of just like, oh, it all needs to be positive. We all need to be winning. We all need to be at our best at all times, when in reality, that's not so much always the case. Oftentimes, if you're excelling at something, it's like there's another aspect that's literally crumbling and in absolute shambles. And for me, I just want to put out there that that's absolutely okay. As long as you're working towards improving it, I think it's time for us to normalize being positive, but within reason. There are gonna be times where you just absolutely feel like shit, and that's okay too.
Yeah, be positive, but be realistic. Have to have balance. And in most people's lives, there is balance. While you are thriving in one space, a lot of times, even if you're not realizing it, there's something else that might be lacking or empty or struggling to come together for really anybody or like the situation to be like a complete 100%. Like nobody really feels fully fulfilled in all capacities at all times. And to
Right.
strive for that, you're almost kind of setting yourself up for failure, I would say. It's
Yeah. So for me, when I think of toxic positivity, I think it goes a little bit further. What bothers me about it per se is it creates an, I don't even know what's the word I'm looking for, but it's like a false sense of reality. Like, oh, we are all perfect. So you have people who will project perfection, but behind the scenes, shambles, tears, like there was another YouTuber called Seon Okimi, I think her name is. She does natural hair videos. And this was totally just like unrelated. She was doing a video talking about her big chop, and she showed a little video snippet of herself, like when she came back. She was expressing like she had really long hair, like creamed hair, or processed, not creamed. And she was just talking about like when she did the TikTok video, she was showing the back of her hair. Now, in that YouTube video, she actually showed the video in its entirety. And when she turned around, she was literally in tears. And so she took a moment to speak about like the false sense of social media, because she was like, that day was such a shitty day for her. She was really going through it. And because her back was turned to the camera, it was all good and dandy. And the TikTok she was doing, the music was quite upbeat. But she was like, in reality, that was such a bad day for her. And she was literally falling apart because she had gone through something earlier that day in respect to her hair, and a hairdresser not wanting to do her hair, whatever, some situation, and she felt really bad. But it's just how the culture is. She wasn't able to voice that or just be like, yeah, I'm having a bad day or whatever. She still had to go home and create like content because that's her business, but do it in such a way where it's like a facade, it's a mirror that, oh, I'm okay, everything's popping, we're great here, when that was not the reality. You get what I mean? And that's the problem with it for me.
yeah, I definitely think influencers have this weight to carry, even the same way
Mm-hmm.
you like assume celebrities to be, right? Every time you see them, they're supposed to be this like jovial, happy, open, like kind of excited person. And because they are a public, uh,
Figure.
right, I don't even know, figure, but right, you're on the internet, it's public, and this is your like way to make money, you're public. And so the expectation is that you're always open to everything and always like happy and living a nice life. And that is so far from the truth for a lot of these people. And they just use it really as an outlet. So many people use social media as an outlet. Like they create this whole new reality for them because
Their existing reality sucks.
right, right.
Yeah.
I think it's just people need to be weary, kind of conscious and considerate of how you kind of give advice. And when you fix your mouth to say something to somebody, like really think about it. Because I definitely have friends that have anxiety and serious depression, and it's like, oh, just be happy, or oh, it's okay, or like, oh,
Yeah.
it'll be okay. Like you might not know what the right thing to say is, but it's just like imagine being so sad and somebody just telling you to like not cry about it. Like your mom just died and somebody tells you, "Oh, well, you're alive. It's fine."
You'll be fine, right? Mm. I was gonna ask, well, we know how it has an impact generally on just like us individuals in society, but on a more personal note, do you think toxic positivity has impacted just women in general, people in general, but more so us Black women in terms of like our self-love, how we relate to ourselves, what we think about ourselves? What has been your experience in that regard?
Less of maybe being a Black woman and more just being a woman.
Mm,
Like if you complain about being catcalled or like the way you're treated in certain areas, like sexualized, people are just like, oh, but you should be happy that so and so is into you. Or like, oh, they're just doing that, as a way to flirt, or they're just trying to get to know you. And I'm like, well, that makes me feel uncomfortable, but you're telling me I shouldn't feel uncomfortable and I should be okay with it. And then even that in our communities, like even say you have a cheating husband or a cheating partner, but somebody's going to tell you, well, at least he comes home every night. It's
Right.
still, they're running the streets like a stray dog in the daytime, but because they come home every night or they show up, you're supposed to be okay with it. You know, that kind of like, not necessarily like forcing you into silence, but telling you that it should be okay because.
So basically, like you're saying, you feel like it's not that you aren't, you know, okay, so you're in a situation where you're not completely fulfilled or completely happy, but because you have a certain percentage of this thing, you're not allowed to say anything because at least you have 40 or 50% of this thing. That's what
Right.
you're feeling.
Right. As well as, yeah, if you're in a situation that you don't even want to be in, but they're like, you know, you have a boss that is maybe abusing his privilege
Mm-hmm.
in the workplace, but it's like, okay, well, at least you have a job. So just like, you know, be okay with that and like go with their flow or whatever. Again, one, you don't want to be fired, and two, is HR really going to help you out anyways, you know? I believe those would be the two biggest effects on my personal life like that. How about yourself?
I mean, you see, the thing is, I've always been very, I don't want to say set in my way, but I've always been the type of person to kind of figure out my own pace. Like I'll do what works for me, irrespective of what everyone else is doing. But what I have noticed, and it's not totally fair to put the blame on people in the media or people who are considered, you know, whether it be influencers or people who have some sort of influence over people in whatever way. But the main thing for me is the culture of encouraging people to do things under the basis of, you know, like some people package it really well. Like the other day, I was watching The Financial Diet, which is another channel that I watch religiously, and Chelsea is the host, and she released a video talking about like um, self-love and the negative aspects of it. And so under the subset of what we were talking about, that's one of the ways that I noticed that it can be dangerous, where you have these influencers who are telling people like, oh, you know, under the guise of self-love or under the guise of it's okay to do this and feel good about it, which don't get me wrong, it's totally okay to do certain things for yourself. It's totally okay to set aside things, but everyone doesn't have the same privilege, everyone doesn't have the same advantage. And so for example, if I tell you I'm an influencer, I'm out here getting sponsors, I have money, and you know, I'm going on trips and whatever, but these are covered by sponsors and so on, and I'm here encouraging regular 9 to 5 people who are so impressionable, particularly the younger demographic. Like when you think about when you're at the latter part of high school or just starting uni and undergrad, you're very impressionable. And so you're trying to keep up with that because that's what's projected as positivity. It's under living your best life. So it has a positive connotation, but this is not something that's attainable for everyone. And so if you follow suit with that, you will find that either you put yourself in debt or you go out of your way to do something that maybe it's out of your reach, not just financially, but also, you know, you get there and then you realize like, this is not somewhere I really even want to be, because you didn't even do your own research. You just did it because this is what's happening right now. There was a whole stint when I was in uni when everyone wanted to go to Dubai. Why? Because that was just what was popular at the time. And that was what was projected as being the in thing, living your best life, being positive. And it's just like, that's a part of it that I think grates me the most, like the negative aspect that I don't think is really doing us any favors, not just in the Black community, but generally for everyone who takes on this, what do I want to say, this way of life under the guise of just like, oh, this is me, I'm doing me. For those who can afford it, great. But for those who can't, live within your means.
Yeah, definitely. Just live within your means. And if you are able to like plan, if this is really research or look
Mhm.
into the things that you think will make you a little bit more happy or more fulfilled, more content, and then like make a plan. Change doesn't happen
Yeah.
overnight. All the people that we see on the internet that are like more than surviving and thriving, I always say I'm surviving, not thriving, right? Sometimes when I'm just like not where I want to be, but I am somewhere, that's what I say. I'm surviving, I'm not thriving. You
Facts.
can
Yeah.
thrive, but you have to break it down and make the small steps that it takes to like get to that point, and like what, happiness or fulfillment is going to look like to you.
Yeah. I
Nobody
100% agree.
shows that though, right? They don't see all the hard work and the time and energy that all these YouTubers that have put in, all the trial and error, all the comments that they get, all the people
Mhm.
stalking them, all of that jazz. So if that's what you want, by all means. But if you like, your happiness is as simple as, leaving one country and going to another country and starting over, do
Mhm.
the appropriate amount of research,
Yeah.
really assess if you have the kind of know-how and the consciousness to do that. Like, we've both lived in foreign countries with language barriers. It's no joke. So don't
Facts.
like just see something and romanticize it and just jump
Absolutely.
on it. You will be disappointed.
But do you think, for example, like with all this false sense of reality of what positivity actually is, that it has given a negative connotation to just like someone who is more open with just like not being okay. Years ago, for example, YouTuber Jaleesa Moses had released a video where when I said she was just falling to tears, like she spoke about her depression and what she was dealing with. And I had never in my life seen her act like this, because she was always so, she does, at the time she did natural hair videos and she would do like travel vlogs and so forth. And then came this video where she was literally just falling apart and just being so forthcoming about everything that she had been dealing with and how she feels. And it almost amazed me, like, to just see like someone who I thought like was just out here living so wonderfully, where you probably think to yourself like, this person has nothing to complain about. She had all the insecurities that, you know, easily could have been me, could have been somebody else that I had known. And it's just like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you think that it creates like, I guess like people kind of withdrawing, like you feel forced to withdraw your actual emotions, and then it kind of just bubbles over into, I can't take this anymore, and you're literally just having like a breakdown, or having just like verbal diarrhea because you've been holding in everything that's been negative or going not as planned for so long.
It definitely has those effects, and that's what's toxic about it, right? It's positivity to the point that you feel the need to withdraw or bury or hide your true feelings.
Mm-hmm.
When in realistically, you do need to like feel them to move through them and then past them. So that's really what makes it toxic.
I guess my main or my ending question would be, if you knew what you knew now in terms of like from your life experience up until this point, I mean, we're still in our 20s, so we have a lot to learn, but what would you advise your younger self, or even like a younger friend, a younger sister, in terms of how to navigate through a society where the positivity, you have to delegate like if it's actually healthy or if it's just a false sense of reality?
I do feel like the positivity being healthy versus it being a false sense of reality are like two different things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because even if the positivity is healthy, it could still kind of be just a fake reflection. I just really think it's important to take everything with a grain of salt. And if you do look at your own personal life, and that reflection shows that even when you feel like you're doing amazing or everything in life is falling into place and it's amazing, there is still some form of lack or give. I feel like you should have that same kind of expectation for other people's lives. And so either you're giving them a grain of salt with whatever they're telling you, or just accepting it as, this is their reality now, but it hasn't always been that reality, and it might not necessarily stay that way. Yeah, just in terms of just being supportive. Try to be as supportive as you could hope for yourself, but don't try
Exactly.
to force, don't like force your your view, I guess, on how people should handle things onto them.
So that's what you tell your younger self in respect to the positivity aspect.
Yeah. Just take everything in life has a grain of salt. Every
Okay.
single thing in life has a grain of salt. Everybody's experience, everybody's win, everybody's loss. And so when you're looking at that from a positivity standpoint, usually there is some downside to it. And even if they don't want to share that with you, it doesn't mean that it wasn't there and it didn't exist. And so just you need to be conscious of that. Don't red eye and bad mind nobody when at the end of the day, if you knew what they went through from A to Z to get to that, you couldn't handle it or you wouldn't do it, you know? That's just not sensible.
Okay.
What would you tell
Fair
little
enough.
D? Little D.
I'm gonna go out on the limb here and maybe probably crush little D's dreams, because I think a big part of what a lot of parents do is paint this picture of, oh, you do this by this age and you do that by that age, and they kind of make you feel like there's just a certain progression for life and this is the way it's going to be. And only realize when you're starting to evolve into your own persona, your own personality, that this isn't necessarily the way that things are going to go, and that you can plan and God can laugh in your face. So for me, that would be the thing I would tell my younger self, is to just, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to plan something and for it to not go according to plan. Always have a plan B, because that's going to help you to be as positive as you can be about the outcome of certain things. And then you have prepared to catch yourself should you fall through your first plan. And that's what's going to help you to stay positive in a healthy way. But don't get so fixated on this is the way it should be or this is the only way it can be, because then when that doesn't work out, that's what leads, in my experience, to an overwhelming feeling, overwhelming ball of just negative emotions and feeling like a failure where you are. And then that's when you feel like you have to be pushing yourself to create this false sense of positivity, even when that's not the way you're feeling, especially when your peers may be experiencing things that maybe you had planned to be experiencing by this point, but that's just not the case. So that would be my advice. Like, plan for your plans.
That's pretty good advice. And
Yeah.
I think your current self is very good at that. But like you said, it's advice that maybe you wish you had earlier
Earlier.
in life.
Yeah. I think I had to figure that out on my own. And that was not easy. I figured that out after failing at something or some things that I realized, like, okay, this might not work out exactly how I had planned it. Whereas if I was privy to that information, not blaming parents or anything, it's just that parents kind of make you feel like, it's kind of like when you watch TV and then parents are on TV like, oh, telling their kids like, you could be anything you want, you can be president. I think it's important to be honest with your kids. It's
Yeah.
not to say that anything is out of reach for you. I think it's important to motivate your kids, but also within reason. If the chances of you becoming president, especially if you're not in that realm, like you're from a totally different country, you're not an American, like, I just think it's important to be honest with your kids and kind of guide them to their achievements within the scope of what is like within their realm. I don't know if that sounds horrible, like you're limiting your kids. I feel like it's a two-sided coin. So you want to let them know to push for things, but within reason. And if it is that they're going to push for something that's so like out of this world, then have a plan B, so that if in the case that maybe 2% chance does not materialize, you're not crushed and devastated,
I mean,
especially for
they're
people
still
who
going to be
pursue.
devastated, but it's okay to know that it's okay to fail and you just have to move on from there or try again a different way. But
Yeah,
I,
and I feel like a big part of not being so crushed is knowing that you have something else to rely on. Like,
okay,
for example, people who pursue like entertainment, like whether it be you want to be an actor, actress, singer. Oftentimes, I mean, let's be honest, very few people who pursue those avenues actually make it big. And then people will focus on the stories of like, oh yeah, but there's the Cardi B's and there are these people who went from rags to riches or from stripper to celebrity. We're not saying it's unheard of. We're just saying those people are the exception. They're not the rule. So for me, if I'm gonna give my child a push to pursue something that I know like the success rate is really low, not to say that I don't have faith in you being able to do it, but just kind of knowing that your plan needs a plan. You get what I mean? Like you need a net underneath it so that you're not asked out in the end and devastated by that.
Yes, great advice.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us for episode 3 of Let's Talk About It. I hope you enjoyed the conversation on everything surrounding the topic of toxic positivity and you have learned something from our personal experiences. Go ahead, like, share, and comment in the chat down below. Share your personal experiences. What do you think about this topic? What has been your experience, and how did you move forward with healthy positivity? And until next week, guys.